What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are back with the Ferrari 412 build today. For those of you just tuning into the series, this is a 1986 Ferrari 412 that we are doing a full resto mod on with this at its heart. This is a 800 horsepower, 6.5 liter V12 out of the Ferrari 812. We also added this, the 6-speed manual transaxle from a Ferrari 599. Now the Ferrari 412 was a car plagued by the stubbornness of Enzo Ferrari. It was a car that featured 1970s frame technology mixed with some wiring and electronics from the mid-1980s. And that's why we decided that one of the most essential changes we would make to this car during our resto modding process was adding a steering rack. So now I'm gonna let Steve explain a little bit of the design philosophy behind the steering rack system in this car and explain how and why we would be adding a steering rack in the first place. Let's get right to it.
When we originally started brainstorming and thinking about this project, the person that we're building this car for, their main goal, in their words, was to make a 412 that doesn't suck. FBI, open up! I thought about, in terms of driver experience, what it was that sucked or was not good about the 412. The engine power and the engine was not the thing that jumped out in my mind that I absolutely did not like about this car. The number one thing, aside from the automatic transmission,
this shifter is straight out of a 1966 Camaro,
was that I just absolutely did not like the steering. When you drive them, the steering is very vague. Has very little feel. To have a modern GT car be pleasurable or fun to drive today, but be a 412, the very first thing that we had to do is completely redesign the suspension and convert the car from the original steering box design to a steering rack. One of the main problems in this project, once we decided that we were going to do a steering rack, was where to mount it. You look at all the different problems involved and you come up with a solution that's like the best compromise for all the different problems. And in the case of this specific car, the actual original frame, because of the way it was made with the steering box, we were going to lose a large amount of the actual structural parts of the frame, no matter what we did. So instead, we came up with this idea of basically a removable reinforcement. So we wanted a reinforcement that you could take the reinforcement on and off of the frame. The idea is, if we were going to do that, we basically wanted to make it so that the sway bar, the steering rack, and all the stuff that went across the front of the car was able to just simply be removed with like 4 simple screws. This was one of the first actual jigs. So this jig basically is going to hold both forwards and rearwards these 4 points. Now these 4 points are basically directly in front of our A-arm pickup points. So this is just a bore, a straight bore, and then that's a taper. Now, I'll show you the actual pin. These are actual solid models of the taper pins. The inside here is actually a 14mm by 125 thread. You can see that this is tapered and then this is just a round shape. Basically the way that works is it actually goes into this round receiver. And the way this works is you're able to bolt and pull this plate onto the pin. And so the round piece here is about a 1/1000th clearance fit. I made this just a big flat square piece. Martin can go ahead and then mark on it and trim it to whatever shape he wants to weld it onto the front of the frame.
the steering rack we decided to use was the Woodward Steering JL heavy duty manual steering rack. When we got it, we were super stoked with it. It was really buttery smooth. We had it custom made to a 31-inch length. We are also using their mini firewall bushing. We are super happy with that as well. Martin and I then removed the engine so that he could finish welding in the frame sections that had our new suspension points. With that completed, Martin moved ahead to building the new shock mounting points. We decided to use the Penske Racing 8760 shocks because we had already used those in previous projects and been really happy with their performance. And we already had CNC machined mounting blocks that we could manufacture into the 412.
Now that I had all of the stuff, now that I had the steering rack, the sway bar mounts, I went about designing the piece. As you can see, here's our piece that I designed for this car. When you see this piece, all of a sudden it becomes very apparent where the original inspiration that I had for making this part came from. When I was in middle school, I read in an automotive book about a car called a Maserati Cubasco. This car actually had a frame that's similar to like a Lotus Esprit frame or the DeLorean frame. And the way the frame was made, because there's no real body structure, it's a backbone frame, they had this actual front panel that kind of had this same shape and had the mounting points for the individual suspension on it. And I just remember, you know, at the time I thought that that piece was so unique and cool looking. And it was kind of funny is that as soon as we got to the point in this car that we realized we were going to need something like this, I immediately remembered in my mind the Maserati Cubasco frame and that front panel. And with anything that I design, Martin and I are both really similar in that if we are going to make a part, I want to make the part integrated with the other things that are around it. In this case, I went ahead and put a bunch of individual threaded bolt holes. So all of these holes that you can see along here are all threaded and they're all 6mm threads. Instead of putting an actual mounting point and then making a mounting bracket for the steering rack, I went ahead and these are specifically sized for our bushings. And so the actual bushings that mount the steering rack literally just press right into the plate. And then on the front of the plate you can see here, this is where the actual sway bar mounts need to be. then I wanted to be able to still service the car and work on the car and be able to change the accessory belts with this plate on. So you can see this here, that actually didn't need to be cut out at all. The actual plate could have been all in, the front pulley would have still had enough clearance. But by us cutting this out here and having this hole here, it allows us actually to get in and turn the front of the engine with a tool. And this actually gives us enough room to actually get a belt on and off. So if something happens and we need to replace one of the belts, we don't have to take this all apart to replace the belt. Here you can see that this area is a little bit taller and thicker than it probably really needs to be. You can't see it in this, but in the actual part, that is threaded. So this has an 18 millimeter by 1.5 millimeter thread pitch. And so I made Martin 4 little screws that have basically like a washer on them, so the washer can spin, and you basically put that in there and that pushes on the pins, and you can slowly tighten all 4 of them, and it literally just pops this aluminum structure right off the front of the frame. It's done, so let's go see what it looks like.
See, it fits onto the locating pins as expected. If we get down here, you guys can see this is the access hole for the pulley and for the water lines. Both look like they're going to fit pretty good. Got lots of mounting holes for Martin to use for everything else up here in the front. Go, the piece is on there. What do you guys think? So that'll be it for this video. I am really excited to drive this car. The steering should be an absolutely massive upgrade. Now I know some of you are wondering about power steering. We will cover that in a later video. We have a really cool idea for how we're gonna attack that in this car. But until then, thanks for watching.